Thank you for joining us on the Winning at Selling podcast. I'm Professor Scott Plum of the Minnesota Sales Institute, and with me is Bill Hellkamp of Reach Development Systems.
Everywhere you look, there are hiring signs. I talk to colleagues and clients, and they tell me how hard it is to find capable sales professionals. Yet more often than not, when I start consulting with a new client, I find that they're consciously or unconsciously doing everything they can to annoy the heck out of the salespeople they already have. So wipe away those crocodile tears as Scott and I investigate 7 ways to demotivate your sales team and other uplifting topics on episode 588 of the Winning at Selling podcast.
How appropriate we're recording this on Halloween. It sounds terrifying, Bill. Terrifying. And in Minnesota, we woke up to snow this morning too. So I don't think it's going to stay, but the winter has begun.
That's right. The long slog through to the end of March or April.
Yeah, how it depends. As soon as the snow is gone, but I think the days are going to be getting shorter, and we're going to have to be relying more on the LED daylight lights.
Right.
So,
and you know what you do? Get to work.
Exactly.
Get to work. Great time to work. That's why northern climates are more productive.
Exactly.
Like nothing else to do but work for 6 months.
Okay. So this second part of chapter 4, we're going to cover pages 88 through 98, and it really talks about implication needs and payoff needs, and or payoff questions, and then it talks about implied needs and explicit needs. And this is right out of the book. It says both implication and payoff questions develop implied needs into explicit needs. And because they have similar purposes, it's easy to confuse them. So let's break down some of the terms of that sentence. So we've got implication questions, take the customer to uncover the problems and explore its effects or consequences. So implication questions take the customer's problems and explore the effects or consequences. Need payoff questions get the customer to tell you the benefits that your solution could offer. So we can see that implication questions are a little bit more of problems and consequences, and need payoff questions are a little bit more of the benefits of the solution could offer, which is the customer telling you it's their perception of value that they received.
I think for me, the need payoff questions take them into the future.
Oh, exactly.
The implication questions put them in the present. What's going on here if you don't change things? You know, what's happening because you don't have XYZ, or because you don't have a good partner here, or you can't get the product you want on time. What's happening because of that? And then the need payoff says, if that doesn't change, how well are you going to run your operation if this continues on? And it gets them sweating a little bit, I think. And that's when you get into, I think, the explicit needs is when they start to sweat.
Right. Yeah. So implied needs are statements by the customer of problems, difficulties, and dissatisfaction, and the explicit needs are statements of wants and desires. So you're absolutely right, Bill. It's more of the positive in the future, and it's a better outcome when a solution is applied to a problem too. So we're seeing a little bit of
call that, Scott, we used to call that the magic wand question.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that. All right. If we could wave a magic wand over this problem, what would you like to see happening?
Right.
And that really extends them into the future and forces them to think about how good their life will be if they change what they're doing.
Right. And consider other options. I mean, once you're aware of an option, then you have a choice. You have a choice of whether to accept it or not accept it. And sometimes no is giving something up. And if a salesperson presents something and the prospect says no, they didn't find enough value in it. So the conversation didn't go in the way of uncovering explicit needs and wanting to the desire to be created from the prospect or the customer to be able to want that.
Yeah, they have to have enough of a problem that I want to overcome. If I change vendors, that's a kind of a pain.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
Is my vendor now a big enough of a bother? Am I not getting the product often enough that it's worth, getting a new vendor and starting them up and getting them used to us? That's a bit of a hurdle. And that's what we have to remember, that making a buying decision has work involved with it. And sometimes people don't want to do that work unless that explicit need, that problem is big enough.
Right. Oh, so true. I think a good example to use when switching vendors is if you've ever lost your credit card and you've had to update all of your auto pays and all of the defaults of all of the bills
I
that
make
you
my
have.
wife do that, so not a bother.
I mean, it's like, oh, I had to do that a couple months ago, and it seemed like there were 30 different merchants on that list. And I just went
Yep.
through my credit card statement. I go, who's on auto pay? I had to go in through and change it all. I mean, it's the same thing for a prospect changing vendors. Is on a business level, you have to go through that. Only it's a little bit more extensive, so it does
Well,
take a
and
lot.
I laugh and say I make my wife do that, but
Yeah,
that does make it an easier decision, right?
right,
So
exactly.
if I'm talking to a leader and he or she says, okay, we'll make this change, but they don't have to do any of the work to the change involved. You
Mm-hmm.
can just pass that off to somebody in accounts payable or whatever. And
Right,
so the pain is less for them, but now you've got to work with accounts payable and they're not happy. So
right.
you just have to realize that, like Scott's example about
Mm-hmm.
changing your credit card on all of your auto pays, these things have repercussions. And some people are thinking about those repercussions. You've got to get this problem big enough, explicit enough that it's worth making the change. And that's what the need payoff questions do. If you don't take them there, you're not going to get them to make that decision.
Right, right. And you're really painting a vision in their mind of what it would be like to have your solution. I mean, it's just like driving and test driving a brand new car. You test drive a brand new car, man, it's got pickup, it's got that beautiful new car smell. Look at all the features on it.
Oh, it's got all
And then
it's got the radar systems in it and yeah, you bet.
and then you get into your dirty car and it's sluggish, it doesn't have the features and it kind of smells.
Got the crank down window in it.
Yeah, exactly. So once you do that in a way that the prospect is willing to, envision a new way, a new solution, stay with them because I think you might have something there.
But the problem is we don't want to ask those questions. And we
Right.
go back to the challenger sale, the need payoff questions, and the implication questions in many ways. They're
Right.
challenging the customer. They're challenging to say, why don't you make a change? What are you doing? We're really saying, why are you sitting in this crummy old car when you could have a new one?
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't do that and we don't make them feel the pain of that crummy old car, then we're just never going to get ourselves to that point because the challenges, the work I have to do is too much to overcome. So don't just hope that if I show them the benefits and I show them the features and benefits, they're gonna make this connection in their mind. They won't necessarily make the connection in their mind. They have to feel the pain.
Yeah, and see that there's a better way. There's a great exercise on page 95. Starts on page 94, and in the sheet of paper, landscape in the middle of it, write down the potential problems that a prospect may experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the four corners, write down the implications. So ask yourself, what are the related difficulties, this problem, the implication, situation in each of the corner that might lead to them making a change. So
okay, can you give an example? Let's use your car. Let's use your car thing as an example, right?
So
the problem is my car doesn't run that well.
Mm-hmm. So
right, or I'm sick of it.
Are going to be it's potential repairs.
Yep.
And it's getting in over 100,000 miles, and there's
get caught somewhere stranded.
Oh yeah, I could be going to a very important client meeting and all of a sudden my car breaks down. And when there's people that are coming to a workshop and you're kind of the one presenting it, that's a big miss if you can't make it there. I mean, you better scramble and get an Uber ASAP.
Right.
But and then the implication is in the four corners. Implication could be one of the situations of letting down a client and costing the client thousands of dollars having to replace something. That's an implication question.
Maybe you have to give someone a ride. Maybe you have to give your boss a ride somewhere, and it's embarrassing, to take them in that car. So it makes you feel like you're unsuccessful.
Right. I mean, so you got that. You've got the repairs. You've got maybe some of the technology connection with hands-free and your phone and the car.
Oh, there's a good one. Yeah.
Creating safety, greater safety measures. You want to be able to communicate with people while you're driving. And sometimes people just have the do not disturb on and you can't reach them until they get to
So if I think about these implications as this exercise shows me, then what do I do with that?
Those are all reasons to make a change. So they're somewhat rational. So you're being rational as you list out these reasons, and then you get to the benefits of it, and now you're getting to the emotional side. So how will you feel after you make this purchase of a different new vehicle? You're going to feel better. You're going to feel like you're being more proactive and supporting safety and convenience.
Yeah.
And hopefully your attitude will increase because you feel like you deserve it too.
That's right. And I think the other thing you want to do, with these is these cause you to create questions.
Yeah.
So if I look at these 4 corners where I've identified 4 difficulties with that problem, now I can say, hey, Scott, have you ever been in a situation where you've been worried that your car might break down?
Bingo.
Leaving you in a dangerous situation or leaving you in not being able to get to an appointment on time? Oh yeah, well, I've kind of thought about that, so now we're getting into causing them to rethink the problems they have. Have you ever had to take your boss or somebody important somewhere and you had to clean all the stuff out of your car and it still didn't look good enough? These are how you create the questions. And again, I think what this highlights for me, Scott, is that these aren't going to come to you magically in the middle of the appointment.
Right. So true.
You have to think about these things, think about these implications, these related difficulties, and then start to develop questions around those. And those are the questions you bring into the appointment with you. And maybe you don't use them all. Maybe they aren't all appropriate, but you've thought it through and you've prepared fully for the appointment. And because you are selling the same thing over and over, you don't need to create the questions over and over. You have those questions because you've started to use them on a regular basis. So don't expect your appointments to just happen because you started to think about these. You've got to take it fully through the question. And what happens if they say, no, that's not a problem?
Great. Then we move on. That's not of importance. And maybe we end up kind of circling back when their guard is down a little bit. We ask them a question related to that particular problem and see how they'd answer it.
Right.
I love the way Covey handles some situations. He brings the future to the present, saying, imagine that you've got this important meeting and you're picking up your boss and you have to drive 45 miles to, the appointment, and, you're having car troubles. I mean, what would happen next? And now you're creating a scenario that they have to respond to today. So you're bringing the future probability or problem to the current, time and saying, if this were to happen, what would you do next?
Right.
And now you're creating options for them to consider. Do they want to avoid it? Or if it did happen, what would they do to solve it?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the way you have to really use these questions and think it through. And as we started with this chapter, don't just get yourself caught in the problem questions or in the information questions. Move on to what's going to happen with these problems. The problem questions are to give you the head start. And now you talk about implication and needs payoff. Okay, you identified that you're not getting your product as often as you'd like. What does that mean? And what if we could solve that for you?
Right.
Great chapter, man. Packed full.
It is. I mean, I'm glad that we broke it down into 2 sections because it is very thick and it does require 2 different shows to go over it. But think about some of your current practices, our listeners, think about your current practices, the current questions that you're asking in the process of those questions. Think about the information that you want to know and learn. Create questions around the information that you want to uncover and learn in the process of the spin selling model. And I think you may find some smoother conversations in the future, but it's not going to hurt to try. And as you try, I think you're going to find a better way too. When you apply your style in this process, I think there's going to be a payoff for you in the long run with combining the 2. Anything else you want to add to the?
No, I think it's really important though to take your questioning to this high level and just challenge, as we talked in the Challenger Sale, challenge your customer a little bit more to really relive the problem and then relive or live the future solution.
And some of the connection with this book and the Challenger Sales Bill's brought up is that Neil Rackham wrote this book, and then Neil Rackham wrote the foreword to the Challenger Sale. So the Challenger Sale is kind of an adoption to the current marketplace based on how many years? 40 years has gone by, maybe even longer. 50 years has gone by since spin selling was written. So it's an evolution to the current market times.
Yeah. Excellent book. He may use some old fashioned examples about fax machines or, whatever, but at the same time, The information is great, and if you're not reading, pick up the book because you're gonna get a lot more out of it by reading it. Got anything else on that?
Nope. Chapter 5, we're going to be covering next week, pages 99 through
Giving
116.
benefits in major sales. So we're going to start talking about benefits now.
Yeah. Wow. Great. Good.
The follow-up. Yeah. All right. Well, our topic today, as we opened up with, is 7 ways to demotivate your sales team. I would imagine there's probably more than 7 ways. I think some sales managers and organizations get really creative in finding ways to demotivate all of their employees. My wife brings me some stories that always make me cringe about management and what people are doing. So, but let's talk about demotivating your sales team. I think you've got to realize that you've got a very important asset there in your sales team, and it's a pain to hire new people. I remember what Mike said last week. He said some sales managers won't push their salespeople because if I do, maybe they'll quit, and then I have to hire them and hire new people. And he said, "Isn't that your job? You're going to tell that to the VP? That's why you're not pushing your people, because you don't want to have to hire somebody new." It's like, it's crazy what we do there, but I think not pushing your salespeople, not giving them a good direction, are all ways to demotivate them. So in leaving them alone, sometimes I think we can be demotivating and doing a bad job. Thoughts on that demotivation, Scott?
Well, I think that the absence and not creating, a bit of a relationship, kind of alienating people, that's demotivating. They don't feel like they're contributing. They feel like they're doing something lost. They don't feel connected to a team. I mean, if you want to destroy a culture, practice that behavior as a leader and see how many people stick around. And those that do stick around, what type of characteristics and attributes they share with you, which is not favorable either.
Well, that's what we always have to worry about, isn't it? Demotivated salespeople never seem to leave.
Right.
On their own, right?
Right.
But the motivated ones who aren't liking what's going on, they have options.
They really do. And, leadership can try to hold on to those folks as best you can, but sometimes you've got lightning in a bottle and it's going to be tough to capture that. However, depending on where you are in your business, it could be a great succession plan too. So
really, they lead
cut
you.
that off, but yeah.
All right, let's get going here. I've got 7 ways, and as I said, there's probably more than 7, but here's number 1, a poorly planned compensation plan. A poorly thought out compensation plan. Here's the problems. We have them that are confusing. And when salespeople are confused, they're like customers. They tend to walk away. So I don't know how to make money. I don't know how to maximize my money in this. And so I tend to not want to participate in that. Another problem is that they're lopsided. We see this in sales contests. And we create this contest or a sales plan that over rewards people in a particular area, and then management is surprised when all salespeople do is sell to that overly compensated area. We put a big spiff on product B and we're selling the hell out of product B, but nobody's selling product A. We're like, why aren't you selling product A? It's like, well, because I get twice as much for selling product B. What's wrong with your head?
Yeah.
And they're always surprised by that. Another problem is they're under rewarding. And I've dealt with this where I had a client who didn't want to pay people for the big sales. And that's the last one. It's unsustainable. They're not willing to pay for the big deal hits. So, if you do little stuff, we'll pay 2 or 3%. But if you get a big multi-million-dollar contract, well, that's the company's.
Well, right.
Get compensated on that, and man, people will run away. So those are kind of the 4 things I see on compensation plans. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think overall compensation, I just love the motto is, reward the behavior you want to instill. So, if it comes to lopsided, put in bonuses that says, you got to have a certain amount of sales in this category, and then you have to have a certain amount of sales in this category. And together they need to equal this amount. So create the objectives. The behavior is selling everything. The objective is what to sell.
Right.
And if you create a good plan of balancing the objectives and the products, you're going to be able to okay with the company. But I think
don't be surprised if the sales team figures out how to maximize.
Exactly. You got that right.
You will find out. That's right. Never underestimate your sales team's ability to pick apart your sales plan and maximize the money for themselves.
I've spent some time in the insurance industry and the telecom industry. And you want to find some very creative salespeople, learn about it in those two industries.
Well, we talk about it too, Scott. We've seen it where they start to really encourage people to sell on the last 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they're shocked when all of the sales happen in the last 2 days
Right.
of the month or the quarter or whatever period it is. People just figure you out, and whatever you're bonusing, that's what they're going to do, baby.
Yep.
So.
Golf courses are empty on the 30th of the month. There's nobody playing.
All right. Number 2, managing salespeople all the same way, as if they're all robots. Each salesperson is an individual. They have strengths and weaknesses, just like I look at my kids. And if I can't teach them, I can't work with them all exactly the same way. Some of them need to be motivated in one way. Some need to be managed in another way. Some people work better if you leave them alone. Some people work better if you have meetings with them on a regular basis. People respond to different types of coaching. And you've got to learn, that's your job. And again, Mike emphasized this last week. That's your job, is to figure out who these people are, what motivates them, and help them get more motivated by them. And if you coach a person in areas that don't resonate with them, they'll disregard your ideas anyway. And then they'll think you don't care because you don't understand me. Mm-hmm. It's just crazy. So I think a lot of sales managers don't ever get to know their salespeople well enough to properly motivate, train, and coach them. And so we'll talk about one of the reasons why in a minute. But
I think that a good example of that is if anybody's watching these weekend football games, you can't teach a defensive tackle and a wide receiver the same stuff because their roles are completely different. And if you want to be relevant, you got to know what the goals are, the roles are, and what the obligations are.
Even within one role, Scott, we're talking about salespeople. So let's say wide receivers. Well, a Randy Moss is going to be motivated in a different way than a Jerry Rice.
Oh, sure.
Even though they're both fantastic receivers,
mm-hmm.
they look at the team a different way and their place in the team a different way. And so if you tell Randy Moss, we're going to reward you for blocking downfield, he's not going to care a whole lot about that. He said, I want to be the hero, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a Jerry Rice might respond more effectively to that. So I think you really have to look at that person and coach them, even in the same role, differently because of what motivates them.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
All right, number 3, product confusion, poor quality, or availability. Salespeople want clarity on what they're selling, what they can sell, and they want to sell something they can rely on and that's going to be delivered. Right? I always heard you can't sell from an empty cart. Mm-hmm. Right? And if you're not getting good quality product in, if you're not having product available, you're like, oh, well, you can't sell XYZ because we ran out of them because we didn't order enough. Well, boy, you're gonna demotivate your best salespeople that way.
So true. I see this a lot in the service industry, where a business development rep or service, sales rep for a company that sells a service, when they are hearing about bad service performed to their customers that they sold, their clients, those salespeople start to slow down because they feel like new sales are going to overwhelm the development team, the fulfillment team, and it's going to reflect negatively on a salesperson's reputation. And salespeople will stop selling. I assure you, if you're in leadership and you're listening to this, if you're not delivering a credible service to the customers that a salesperson is bringing in, a salesperson is going to think twice about starting any new conversations because they're risking their personal reputation in the marketplace and the reputation of the business that they're representing. And there's more of a win to slow down than there is to keep going and destroy the reputation of both. And it's an unfortunate situation, but we need to be able to manage fulfillment when we're offering a service.
We're kind of merging into number 4, which is lousy product installation, delivery, or support. Mm-hmm. And so we could have product quality issues, but we could also have delivery and support issues. So those two might be a little distinct, but they might merge together. But what you're saying is that salesperson's credibility is on the line.
Exactly.
Right. I sell it and I say that we're going to deliver a good product to you, or we're going to get it to you on time, or we make certain value guarantees in our conversations, and then you don't deliver, or somebody drops the ball. Oh, I dropped the ball and I didn't get that quote done on time or whatever. Hey, I don't have time to keep reselling to the same people.
Right.
I'm
Right.
on commission. You get paid whether you screw up or not. But when you screw up and that customer cancels it, that's money coming out of my pocket. And I can't afford to go and have to resell. Oh, hey, yeah, Bill, your people didn't deliver it on time. Let's cancel that order. Oh, I got to go back and resell them now on what, and fix the problem. I don't have time because delivery or installation has done their job poorly.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a great correlation between the two.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Number 5, old technology or other bad tools. So, hey, I look pretty stupid coming in with my flip phone or my BlackBerry, right?
Yeah.
just we're not technology. We're not up to date with the technology. Technology should be helping in sales and not getting in their way. Meaning I can't have, oh, that program's not working, or that software is not easy to use, or we're using a system that's pretty archaic because it was cheap and we don't want to get a new CRM, and the old CRM doesn't work very well, and it causes me to spend a lot of time. And now you're telling me you're not going to spend money on a new CRM because you like the cheapness of the old one, right? Or how about poorly produced brochures?
Right.
Or
Right.
no brochures, or a web page that looks second class. And now I want to refer them to my website, but it looks like crap. It looks like it was done by a third grader. So all these things make us look second class, and I think we have to watch out for those.
Right. I mean, that's doing things on the cheap. That says that, we're not willing to reinvest in the business. Business is tough. We have to work hard and spending money on other areas, and we're not able to support our salespeople. And our salespeople are the frontline people. I mean, let's save some money on some pens versus on, the resources that salespeople need to generate revenue. Let's, keep those up to date. Those are important.
Yeah, we got a mean person at the front desk answering the phone. So that's a good option,
Right. Yeah.
He or she is old and tired and they, hang up on customers. Would you do that? I don't think so. Right. So that's the same thing as having a bad web page these days.
Right.
It's like
right.
hanging up on customers. So, All right. Number 6, lack of ongoing sales training. What does that communicate? Why does it demotivate your salespeople? Well, salespeople think they're not important. If we're not going to do training, if you're not going to give me new skills, if you're not, and we've laughed about this for years, Scott. Hey, give me a 10% increase in sales this year. Okay, what are you going to give me? How am I supposed to do that? Well, I assume you only worked at 80% level last year, so 10% should be easy if you just work harder.
Right.
But instead, really some selling tips or some ongoing sales training, some coaching. I think when you don't coach or train, you're saying that sales is just a coincidence. It's not a developed skill. It just happens, anybody can do it. I think sometimes that's the leadership thought process. Anybody can do sales. Just make some phone calls. It doesn't matter what you do. And so selling isn't a skill.
Right. If you love people, you should go into sales.
If you talk good, you're a good talker.
Yeah.
Good talker. He's a good talker. Let's put him into sales.
Yeah, you're a people person. You're an
extrovert.
There
you go. There you go.
We should put you in sales.
And I think the other problem is then you have no consistent sales process.
Right.
And so the managers can't coach effectively to a sales process because there is none. So Scott sells one way and I sell another way and Larry sells another way and Mary sells a different way. And now the manager's like, well, let's look at your sales funnel. I don't use that sales funnel thing.
Right.
I don't use the CRM. Well, you're supposed to. Well, yeah, but nobody's ever gotten fired for not using it. So
right. That's a sad thing to say, but it's so true. Nobody's gotten fired for not using the CRM.
That's right.
Well, there's about to be a surprise.
That's right.
Maybe that's going to happen.
We're going to start with our worst one. Well, that's why we want to have somebody in the wings waiting to take their job. That motivates people to actually do what they're expected to be doing. Right. That CRM follow-up is, but we don't train them on it. So they don't really know how to use it. So it's always a bother.
That's true. So true.
All right. Last ones as we wrap up today. Micromanagement by metrics alone. Insulting to only judge me by my metrics and not help coach or develop me. And you're not working to develop my skills. I just get that nasty gram at 2 a.m. in all caps saying, work
Yeah.
harder, work faster, work harder, work faster.
It's almost like when you get that email at 2 a.m, somebody else couldn't sleep. So your sales manager is taking on all the pressure of your job, but you're sleeping just fine.
Well, yeah, they're not doing anything to coach me or manage me. And so, sending me a note saying work harder, work faster, be smarter, be better, just doesn't motivate me. If I knew how to do that, I'd be doing that.
Right.
Right. And if I'm not doing that, if I'm not working and using my tools well, then you should know that. You should know exactly what I'm not doing because you're working with me directly. But I do think some managers now with CRMs and with the tools that they have, they sit at their desk and they look at your numbers and then they just judge you on your numbers. Oh, Scott, you're not making enough phone calls. Well, I had these things go on and, well, you need to make more phone calls. Okay, well, I had this thing blow up and then you expected me to do deliveries job for a week. And so what am I supposed to do? So we have to look at that. And I've had clients do that. I think you've talked about driving the forklift.
Right.
I have clients that, they expect the salespeople to make deliveries when things didn't get delivered by the delivery team. And they'll expect them to do it for a week, drive the truck around, delivering stuff because delivery didn't hire enough people. It's crazy. So watch out for your micromanagement by metrics. Get in there and really coach your salespeople.
Yeah. All great advice and all very effective on demotivating the salespeople if you implement them. So I can tell you, it's guaranteed results.
Yeah, guaranteed results that they'll leave. And if you value your sales team and you don't want to go hire new ones, do what you can to improve the ones that you currently have. So do you have some resources for our
I was
audience?
just thinking, just in our conversation, I mean, if anybody in the sales leadership capacity, ownership of a company, if you're experiencing any of these, behaviors within your sales channel, I mean, Bill and I welcome a call. And you can reach out to us on LinkedIn. You could reach out to us on the show notes page. And we have a form there. You fill that out, and either one of us will be happy to have a conversation with you about this and some of the options that you can apply today to be able to turn that around.
All right. So we're going to do a book giveaway too.
Yeah.
We're giving away a copy of Mike Weinberg's book, First Time Managers Sales. And it's a great book. I've gotten halfway through it, and I just think it's tremendous advice for somebody who's a sales manager. And all you need to do is go onto our webpage and sign up or connect with us on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'm interested in being in the book drawing. And in a couple of weeks, we'll give that away.
Yeah. And then also I want to promote PSA, Professional Sales Association. Bill is the president of that group. I'm the past president. You can learn more at psamn.org. There's meetings every month. They are First Friday and via Zoom. So anywhere in the world, if you wanted to be available at 8:00 Central Time, you can tune into the conversation.
Actually, we had to move over to Teams. So just so they know.
Okay. Teams it is. Teams. It's virtual. It's
virtual. But if you're in the Twin Cities area, you can sign up to attend and meet some nice people and always a good speaker.
Yeah, always. So the golden nugget today is a bit of a repeat. So we may have heard this before, and I really think that it deems repeating because it's so important. It's like, and it is, you cannot change the people around you. You can change the people around you. And I did a search on that. I couldn't find who the author of it is, but I think it's just so profound. And I think about being a salesperson, working for a sales leader, a sales manager that demotivates me. I want to change the people around me because that's a culture that they create. And I've left companies. I left one company after 18 days because of a bad sales manager. And I saw the writing on the wall, and that sales manager did not last long.
Yeah, I think it's important to not have bad people in your organization. If you've got somebody who's a jerk, you can try to change them, but sometimes they're a jerk to the bone and it's time to get rid of them and instead of losing the good people. But I just am always surprised at companies that put up with people that are just plain mean. And I don't get it. So change the people around you because you're not going to change the habits of the people around you. Some of those things are deeply ingrained. All of this information is going to be at winningatselling.com, the show notes and the ability to plug in.
Next week, we're going to be covering chapters 5, which is pages 99 through 116. And the topic is going to be avoiding disappointment. Subscribe and share this podcast with your network and your colleagues on social media.
Go out and get better one skill at a time.
Joyful selling.